So I'm here with one of my favorite people in developer marketing and developer ecosystem in general, Ceci Stallsmith. Thank you for joining.
Thank you, Amir.
Yay! A story that I have about you, I thought about like I need a story about every person that I interview. A story about you is we worked both in Slack in the very early days, and when I came first to the office, you were so cheerful and happy. I wasn't used to that Californian happiness. I thought, oh, I need to get sunglasses because every morning before I have my coffee, I'm gonna have too much happiness in my life. And what happened is that like that happiness sifted through me and made me a happier person. So I'm very thankful to have you in my life, and thank you for joining this.
Back at you, Amir. I feel like my core memory of you is us shipping things and you dancing and singing, let's do it,
Yeah,
let's do it, let's
da-na-na.
do it, do it, do it. So I
That
feel
was
like the
awesome.
feeling is mutual. We had a lot of fun together.
Okay, so for those of you who don't know you, do a quick intro about yourself,
Yeah.
and then we'll jump into questions.
Absolutely. So I can give you my whole arc here, but I started my career in DevRel at Box, which is hilarious because I'm not a developer, but I was able to learn our API well enough that I could run around hackathons. This was like the age of the hackathon when I started my career. It was like me and Twilio were at all the hackathons, getting people to build with our various APIs. I went over to the investing side where I invested in products like NPM and README.io, and then worked with Amir at Slack, built out platform marketing, which was developer marketing, partner marketing, and customer facing product marketing for all of our ecosystem and integration efforts. And I basically then started a consultancy with my business partner, Paige, and we helped companies from Zoom and Stripe and Airtable and Twitter, worked with Amir there, as well as like Render and WorkOS and Code Sandbox to build, develop, or go to market in various ways. So we did everything from launching products to building strategies to building messaging guides. And I recently, actually this week, started as head of marketing at Lovable. So I'm now
Woo!
doing
Yay!
the full thing, which is very exciting, and am focusing on actually bringing the power of developing and development to everyone. So it's no longer gated by having an engineering degree or really knowing how to code, but bringing the ability to build apps and websites to truly the entire world. So very excited about that.
That's awesome. Yes, and we'll need to get Paige on this interview as well. So
Yes.
do a reunion there. So when you talk about developer platforms, like why do you need developer platforms? It feels like you and I have been living in developer platforms all our life, but for somebody who's not there, like why do you need a developer platform?
Mm. When we say why, is this for a SaaS product or is this just in general for anything?
Like why would Slack want a developer platform?
Yes. Okay. So when you're thinking about a SaaS product, so a product that people are using as their day-to-day software to get some kind of job done in their business, the reason why developer platforms are so useful is that they allow you to customize or tailor that product to meet a customer's needs. So, for instance, at Slack, we saw really heavy usage of our developer platform in a couple of different directions. One, the number one thing we saw was our customers, their internal development teams would integrate with Slack and change it so that it worked for their workflows. This was probably our far and away biggest use case for our development platform. After that, we also had a number of developers, and Amir and I worked very closely on this, who wanted to build products on top of Slack to serve our customers and actually build their own businesses. So this was Slack as a platform for launching a business by meeting a need for our customers that we weren't meeting as the core platform ourselves. What's really useful about this sort of ecosystem model is that when you open up your platform to third-party developers to meet the needs of your customers, you're able to become a much more flexible product for your users, and you can ship a lot more and like meet a lot more customer needs than your engineering team could meet on their own. So it essentially allows you to make your product much more extensible and customized for your various customer needs.
I remember when I joined, we already built like 20 integrations, and Brenda, who's a good friend of ours, so told me like I can't support any of these integrations anymore. They continuously break, and we need a different strategy, right?
Yes, we were overwhelmed by sort of the demand for integrations with Slack, the product. And I think what's interesting is you're seeing the way the world is shifting right now. I almost feel like APIs have gone mainstream. Do you feel this way, Amir?
Yeah, yeah, of
Sort of
course.
being a platformed product is now very standardized. And I think that where everything is going with MCP is saying every single software product actually needs to be able to talk to other software products as our products are getting increasingly like integrated in the age of AI. So there's a whole shift I'd see happening in the market right now, but platforming or opening up a developer platform for your company is a no-brainer if you're building a product in sort of the SaaS category.
It's a good question because a lot of people are asking me, should we be a platform for first? And I keep asking myself, and I'd love your thoughts on that. Would the developer platform for Slack be successful if Slack wasn't up and coming and becoming such a big thing? Would we be successful if people didn't love Slack, the core product?
Yeah, I look at sort of platform opportunities through two lenses. So there's the reason why people built on Slack was to reach our user base. So we had, like, it's what you're saying. So, like, we had so many customers that developers were able to build things and reach those customers and basically generate an audience through us. You see people doing that with Anthropic and OpenAI now. So, like, if you built for their products or like build an integration with them, you're going to reach a really big user base. Then on the flip side, there are straight up developer tools or infrastructure. So like the way Andreessen Horowitz categorizes that is like in the infrastructure category. Those are products for developers that have inherent value by themselves without a user base. So Stripe and Twilio are good examples of that sort of in this last generation of software. Stripe allows you to add payments to your product, period. That is simply useful as a tool. So they are a developer platform in that they are built for developers and it is inherently useful by itself with or without customers. So those are different types of the word platform gets
Developer
abused.
platform, yeah.
The word
It's like,
platform is like way overused. Yeah.
yeah, I totally agree. There's like the platform, the AWS, that helps you
Yes.
build stuff but doesn't give you distribution. And then there's the Android marketplace, which gives you distribution and a platform to build on the tools themselves.
I think that the strategy question today, though, when someone's saying, like, should I open the developer platform before I have users? MCP is changing things where it's like, well, if you just make your product open with MCP from the get-go, agents could integrate against your product. Or like agents can talk to your product pretty easily, which might drive some initial usage. I don't know. I think we're a little bit in the Wild West at this moment in time.
So you're saying before you do API first, do MCP first? And then add AI to that?
I don't have an answer on that one. I think it depends on your product and what your product is. Like if you're building an agent, you're going to have MCP probably up and running and not an API. Honestly, it's like, is your product something that you talk to and as an agent essentially, or is your product something that you click buttons in? And I would probably say like MCP for anything agent, API for anything with buttons. And if you're in the middle, you're probably going to need to do both right now.
Yeah, as a person who's a big fan of conversational interfaces, that's a good message. I love that.
Well, okay, I have questions for you, but it might not be relevant for your interview. Given what we learned about bots at Slack, which was they're really well used at first, and people do like to talk to it, but buttons are faster and more efficient, and like people end up wanting a button. How do you see the world of AI changing right now in terms of we're very heavily in the chat interface? Do you think we're going to stay there, or do you think it's going to adjust to have more UI?
I think we're going to have multimodality. I've just experienced that with ChatGPT. I asked it for a backpack, and then it told me which backpacks, but then gave me 3 options, which were actually windows with a selector for images and a link to that store. So I think everybody's now thinking about multimodality. I think we're going to see the same thing that we've seen at Slack. It will start with pure conversation, and then more and more rich interfaces are going to be adopted there. On the other side, we're going to see more chat happening in everywhere you are. So you're going to have chat, and when you book things, you're going to have chat. You'll be able to do everything that the UI doesn't let you do inside chat. So I think we're going to see a hybrid of this.
I like that prediction.
Okay, awesome. Prediction. And I love the conversation. You can ask me questions. This is awesome. By the way, Ceci is the first person we're interviewing for this project.
So excited.
Awesome. So let's talk about your specialty, which is developer marketing. How do you start? So like, let's say you join a small startup. uh, which you've done 3 days ago. Not a small startup, but like an amazing, successful startup. How do you start thinking about developer marketing? What's the core things that you do?
It depends on I mean, the number one question I'd ask if you were starting at a small startup targeting developers is what are your goals? So you've got to start with what are we trying to achieve? Because if you are developer tooling or something in the infrastructure layer, you're probably going to want to get developers using and trying out that product and then gathering those testimonials and sort of like creating a bit of a moment around your product, driving demand. If you're building out a developer platform for a company that already has a lot of users, you're going to be marketing more the value of reaching those users for developers. No matter what, if you're starting to do developer marketing, the couple of things that you have to do are one, get to know your developers really well. There are a lot of different flavors and types of developers. So, like if you're doing a DevOps tool, it's going to be very different from a front end tool. I'm also seeing the world of developers, quote unquote, growing a lot to include plenty of people who are semi-technical at this point. So you're going to need to gauge and get really clear on like what is my target audience and how technical actually are they and like what languages, what do they speak? Like I want to speak in their language. So one of the number one things I see people misfire with in terms of developer marketing is bringing marketing that would work for ServiceNow to to a developer audience,
Yeah.
and it
Yeah.
just falls flat and feels awful. So get to know your audience really well, set your goals very clearly in terms of what you need to achieve. Developers, I think that brand goes a lot farther than you expect with developers. A lot of the companies that have been the biggest like breakouts in terms of developer marketing or developer products do have very nice brand and are high in terms of what people love to use these days. Taste. Stripe is being like the prime example of that. So I would think a lot about sort of getting some of your brand elements to look and feel really nice and polished because developers like that. They will, if they're going to use you, you it's not like a marketer using a product. Like I could kind of flex in and out with a lot of different options for my product stack. When a developer chooses to use your product, it kind of becomes part of their work identity, I would say. It's almost like you get a little logo on their jersey and they judge
Yeah.
each other based on the products
Of
they
course.
use.
We love our
Right.
logos.
Yeah. So I think that that matters a lot. And it's something you need to think about in terms of like as you start building out your brand. Um, so audience, goals, brand. I would think a little bit about community as well. Uh, Developers love doing work in community. There are probably some pre-existing communities that you should go spend some time in. And sort of like my last point I would make there is you need to talk to those developers that you're targeting. And I'm at the point now where I would highly recommend really spending some time going deep with a subset of your target users to just understand how they think. This is just being good about your audience work. And also sort of turning them into somewhat champions for you, figuring out where they hang out so that you know which channels you need to activate to go reach them. And then the last piece is I would probably develop like messaging strategies. So like what's the story you're trying to tell these people? Test it with them, make sure they actually resonate with that story, and then go figure out the different channels that you need to activate on in order to tell that story effectively and reach more of them. So those are the things I've been thinking about.
I love that. One of the things to add to that is like that your audience might change as your company grows,
Yes.
right? I remember at Slack when I talked to a CTO of IBM and I told him, "Yeah, we send all our updates on Twitter," and he's like, "What? I'm used to a PDF being sent by a customer success agent. Don't send me tweets on things that are updating in the API."
Totally. It's you totally grow and change and gain audiences that feel weird and uncomfortable, but those are good problems to have. That's the ideal case. So you do want to be thinking about how you reach further audience segments, and that's often where you also hire people who are specialized in those areas.
Think about the funnel because marketing people love funnels, and I remember you presented a funnel in one of the presentations that you did, which was not the very common funnel that you see in B2C or B2B. Do you think the funnel is different for developers and the actions that you need to take are different?
I think it depends on your product. So I think that there is a degree, now that I've worked with a lot of different products, I think it varies depending on product. So for instance, I worked with a data orchestration platform, and that funnel, it's data engineers who we're working with. Again, very different type of developer from like my average developer. Frankly, data is harder than a lot of the stuff I'd been working on
course,
previously. But you don't just switch out your orchestration platform that easily. It's like really deeply entrenched in your stack. And so to like rip replace is a huge project. Whereas it is pretty easy to swap in and swap out like your email API. Like this just it's just like a more casual move. And then an ecosystem like Slack is a whole different animal. So your funnel, I like to think about sort of aware. It's not so different from the average funnel. It really does start with awareness and consideration, and then moves to activation. And in the end, you're trying to create champions. I think the biggest thing with the developer champion is what you can do in terms of activating the developer champion to bring your product further into their business and then into the next business. Is pretty exceptional because when a developer starts to love you, they are some of the best paid people at their company. So when they fight for your product, you win a lot of the time. And we saw that at Slack big time. Like developers fought to keep our product as the standard messaging system for their companies and they won. So I think that's something that really stands out to me in terms of like minting those champions is really critical with developers. And then with the activation, they often don't want to talk to you the way that you're going to usually work with the sales team. I think there's more literature and like sort of thinking out in the world now about PLG, but it is much more of a PLG motion with developers. And then they're pretty open to consuming hard content, in my opinion. Like you could write long form docs can be very long form, but if they're thorough, developers love them. So I would think about sort of what are the places like you as a marketer often aren't thinking about docs as a channel, but as a developer marketer, docs are one of your number one channels, and I would be making sure those are amazing. Yeah.
I love that. Somebody said like people don't think products suck, they know documentation suck. And if the documentation suck for developers, they just move to the next product. They really like docs are so important. Talking about like things that don't work, how have you ever dealt with like a backlash or developers not happy or something that we've done that broke developer trust?
Yes. It was very interesting working with Twitter for a year and a half as a consultant. I feel like that Twitter is maybe the number one example of doing a lot before I was there, a long time before I was there, before you were there, doing a lot with developers, inviting developers to the platform and then breaking trust with them when they closed the platform off. And even this last go around, like did it again.
Unfortunately, yes.
Yes, that was RIP, sad. I would say my tips to deal with developer trust are trust is consistency over time. So if you have a breaking change or something that you know is going to break everything or ruin something for your developer ecosystem, give them a heads up early.
I love that.
They've all been around for a long time. So they understand that things on the internet and in software have to get changed. So one of the principles we had across me and Amir and Paige, my business partner who worked with us at Slack, was you really need to make sure that you give them at least 4 to 5 months heads up. And we would just create these heavy email sequences. We'd ensure that everything around a breaking change would be sort of white glove handled for them in terms of we'd be very clear in the documentation of the steps they need to remediate the change. And then if it was pretty intense or would impact significant products that were built on our platform, we would get on with them personally and walk through how to improve things and fix them. And if people just were ignoring the change, these moments where you have to change things actually can be very useful for somewhat cleaning out the cobwebs in your platform practice. So if there are developers who are just not going to fix it and don't care, that's when you have to give them some really clear, hey, if you're not improving and switching to our V2 API, we're going to have to shut you down. And sometimes they've moved on, and that's okay. So that's how I would
love
think
that.
about that.
That's so true. I think like on the one side, you work with like the white glove, the things that you have to migrate, and work with them and show them a lot of love, but also be okay saying, hey, some of the integrations will not work and they're probably not that useful. We also did an analysis of how many of the integrations that needed upgrade actually were used on an ongoing basis, and that gave us a good signal of like what is deprecatable and what's not.
Yes, it is always nice to get rid of the things that are just sort of dragging on the platform and not actually improving
Cleanups.
life for anyone. Yes.
Okay, last question. Future. If you had if you had a magical wand and you can tell the future, what do you think the future of developer platform? Are we going to see more developer platforms or less developer platforms? Is engineering going away?
I think about this a lot. Yesterday or 2 days ago, I had a customer call for Lovable, and it was the first time that I fully bought this tagline that our company has that we put on LinkedIn a lot, which is building the last piece of software. The amount that you can build now in terms of application layer, at least using vibe coding tools, is wild. I am in awe of what you can do. And I think that in terms of the future, I believe the database layers are going to stay. Like what's clear is you're going to need a lot of options for databases because essentially a lot of software is you have databases is like Salesforce or any form of even Airtable. Like Airtable and Notion kind of are just a bunch of databases with cool UIs.
Every application is basically an interface over a database. Yes.
It's an interface over. So like databases are going to stay. And then I think everyone's going to end up rolling a lot of their own custom software to meet their exact needs on top of it. And I don't think this change is going to be in the next 3 years, but I think that in 10 years from now, you'll see a lot of people who are more citizen developers. I think you still have to understand a lot of development concepts, but I could see your need to like get in there and code being reduced. I think we're going to continue to see the need for the like 10x engineers who are really full stack and can understand everything and are like, next level, super deep, strong engineers. I think we're going to keep those because I think they're going to end up sort of sewing everything together and understanding how the world of software works. But I think that people who are sort of, I'm going to be rude, sorry, maybe spicy takes are useful, but I think that the world of like mediocre front-end engineers, I think they're all going to go away. And I think that a lot of that is suddenly going to be handled through like logic in a variety of things like Lovable, but not, and I don't think it's going to be just one application that wins. I think there's going to be a set of them, and then agents are going to kind of run across things to make sure integrations work. But it's a big change. What do you think,
love that.
Amir?
I love that take, and I'll take it a step further with the spiciness. I think every mediocre person in every role is going to be deprecated by AI. We're going to have the mediocre legal, the paralegal is going to be deprecated. I think any person, librarian is going to be deprecated if they're mediocre, if they can't like sell you on amazing books. I think every role, I think AI is not taking jobs, it's taking roles. And especially the junior roles are going to be disrupted, which is interesting because how are we going to have senior if we don't have junior people? So that's something that is going to be interesting.
We see a ton of usage for Lovable amongst students and young people. And I actually think that one of the things, if I was a young person, I'd be thinking about a lot is how do I start using all of these tools now so that actually my advantage is I can leapfrog a bunch of people who are in seat because I can do 10 times more with the AI leverage that I have. And I can think in a different framework because I understand how all these tools work. So I do think there's a world where the future is bright in some ways for young people. I also think there's a world where I'm watching Lovable open up this new market of solopreneurs. So like if you wanted to be a founder previously, if you wanted to build anything digital, you needed an engineering co-founder or team, or you had to be an engineer. And now we see all these people who are making meaningful businesses with Lovable who aren't technical. And so there's this sort of latent market demand that we are newly meeting. And I'm curious how big that TAM is because it's brand new.
I think it's unlimited. Everybody wants to build a business, and everybody will be able to build a business. So I think you joined the right company at the right time.
It's like ecosystem on steroids.
Yes.
The platform is the internet, and now suddenly anyone can build for it. So
I love that.
I'm curious to see what happens.
Okay. Thank you so much for joining. I thought we were going to do a 5-minute session or 7-minute session at 20 minutes, and it's such a delight talking to you. Maybe we should do another session with Paige. I'll pitch you that after this. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Amir. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Bye.